My daughter told me to sit in the back row at her wedding. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The coffee was still hot when I found the seating chart on my kitchen counter. Vanessa had left it during her visit yesterday, dropped it beside the mail, casual as a grocery list. I'd been going through paperwork, hadn't noticed it until this morning. I unfolded it slowly. Detailed diagrams of the country club ballroom, every table numbered, every seat assigned. The head table, family tables, friends, business associates. I found my name in the back corner. Last row, table 47. Between the wedding planner's assistant and Vanessa's college roommate's parents, people I'd never met. Her stepfather, Douglas, was listed at table 1. Front row, father of the bride position. I set down my mug with steady hands. Calloused hands, spotted with age now, but still strong. These hands had built Meridian Construction from a single pickup truck to a $200 million operation. Had worked 18-hour days pouring foundations, framing houses, bidding jobs, while Vanessa slept upstairs. Had signed the trust fund documents that gave her $2 million, accessible on her 25th birthday, which was yesterday. I picked up my phone and called my attorney. Richard, it's William Hartford. I need you to review the trust fund I established for Vanessa, specifically the discretionary clause. Papers rustled on his end. The clause that gives you authority to modify or dissolve the trust if the beneficiary demonstrates financial irresponsibility or behavior contrary to family values. That's the one. How quickly can we move? William, what's happened? I looked at the seating chart. Table 47. Due diligence, I said. I'll be in your office at 9. I'd built Meridian with my late wife, Caroline. Started it the year Vanessa was born, 1999. Caroline managed the books, handled contracts, kept us solvent through the lean years when construction work was scarce and competitors undercut every bid. We'd sleep 4 hours a night. Caroline would nurse Vanessa at 2 a.m., then help me review blueprints until dawn. We'd take Vanessa to job sites in a car seat, let her nap in the trailer while we managed crews. When Caroline got sick, ovarian cancer, stage 4, we had just landed our first major commercial contract. She worked through chemotherapy, laptop in the hospital bed, making sure payroll went out, making sure our crews could feed their families. She died when Vanessa was 8. Take care of our girl. Caroline had whispered in hospice. Make sure she understands what we built, why we built it. I tried. Vanessa grew up on construction sites. I brought her to inspections, taught her to read blueprints, explained how every project started with someone's dream and ended with shelter, security, legacy. She'd seemed to understand, seemed to value the work. Then she went to college and met Douglas's daughter, Priscilla. They became roommates, best friends. Vanessa started spending holidays at the Montgomery estate instead of coming home. Started talking about real society and old money versus what we had. Daddy, you're in construction, she'd said during one visit home. That's labor. Douglas is in investment banking. That's leadership. I let it slide. She was young, impressionable, trying to find her place. When she graduated, I offered her a position at Meridian. Vice President of Development, 6-figure salary, chance to learn the business from the inside. She'd laughed. I'm not going to work construction, Daddy. Douglas is sponsoring me for the junior league. I'm focusing on social advancement. Social advancement. Caroline would have had words about that. 6 months ago, Vanessa announced her engagement to Priscilla's brother, Brandon Montgomery III. The wedding was planned for the Montgomery Country Club, the one that had rejected my membership application twice, though I'd built 3 of their board members' vacation homes. It's going to be the event of the season. Vanessa had gushed over lunch at a restaurant. I'd built the foundation for 600 guests. Vera Wong dress. Douglas is walking you down the aisle. I'd set down my fork carefully. Douglas is walking you down the aisle. He's been more of a father to me than, she'd caught herself. Daddy, you don't understand society. Douglas knows how to move in these circles. He'll make the right impression. And I won't. She'd touch my hand, patronizing. You're a self-made man. That's admirable. But this is Brandon's world. Old money, old families. They have expectations. I'd funded the wedding. $200,000. Paid without comment. Paid because she was my daughter, because Caroline would have wanted her to have a beautiful day. But I'd noticed the changes. The way Vanessa introduced me at engagement parties. This is William, he's in construction, with a subtle emphasis that made it sound like I hammered nails instead of running a company with 400 employees. The way she'd stopped mentioning Caroline, stopped visiting Caroline's grave, started referring to Douglas's late wife as a woman of real refinement. This morning's seating chart was simply the final confirmation of what I'd been refusing to see. My daughter was ashamed of me. I dressed in my gray suit, the same one I had worn to Caroline's funeral, to business meetings, to every occasion that required dignity. I didn't believe in flash. The money went to the company, to the cruise, to the trust fund I'd established so Vanessa would never struggle the way Caroline and I had. Richard's office was downtown, 20th floor of a building Meridian had constructed. He stood when I entered, expression grave. I pulled the trust documents. "William, are you certain about this? Show me the clause." He slid the papers across his desk. Legal language, dense and specific, but the core was clear. I retained discretionary authority to modify distributions if Vanessa demonstrated values contrary to the family principles the trust was meant to uphold. What constitutes contrary values is subjective, Richard warned. If Vanessa contests this, she won't contest until after the wedding. By then it'll be done. I picked up a pen. Draft an amendment. The trust is dissolved. All funds revert to the Hartford Family Foundation, which I'll establish to support construction workers' families, medical expenses, education, emergency assistance. That's $2 million. That Caroline and I earned. That we meant to pass on to someone who'd honor what we built. I signed the authorization. Vanessa gets nothing until she demonstrates she understands the value of what she's thrown away. Richard drafted the documents. I signed them. The trust fund that had sat secure for 25 years, waiting for Vanessa's future, was gone by lunchtime. I drove to the construction site where we were building a medical complex. Walked through concrete and rebar, checking the foundation work, talking to the crew. These were people who understood about building things that lasted, who knew about sacrifice. My phone rang at 4 p.m. "Vanessa, Daddy, I need to ask a favor." "Go ahead." "Brandon's parents are hosting a rehearsal dinner tomorrow night. It's formal, very formal. Could you maybe wear something more modern than that gray suit? Douglas said he could take you shopping." I watched a crane lower steel beams into place. Perfect precision, everything measured and planned. "I'll wear what I'm comfortable in," I said. "It's just that Brandon's family photographs everything for the society pages, and..." She paused. "Daddy, please don't make this difficult. This wedding is important to me. Important enough to put me in the back row." Silence. "You saw the seating chart," she said finally. "I did. It's not personal. Douglas is walking me down the aisle, so tradition says he sits front row. You understand." "I understand perfectly." My voice stayed level. "I'll see you at the rehearsal dinner, Vanessa." I hung up before she could hear the edge that wanted to crack through. That night, I sat in Caroline's study, the room I'd left untouched for 17 years. Her desk, her books, her photographs. I pulled out the album from Vanessa's childhood. Caroline holding our newborn daughter. Vanessa at 5, wearing a tiny hard hat at a job site. At 8, the last photo before Caroline died. All three of us covered in paint from fixing up a home for a family who'd lost everything in a fire. "She's forgotten," I told Caroline's image. "Forgotten who you were. What we stood for." The rehearsal dinner was tomorrow. The wedding was Saturday. And my daughter had no idea that the future she'd been counting on had just disappeared. The rehearsal dinner was at the Montgomery estate, 30 acres of manicured grounds, a mansion that looked like it had been airlifted from a European countryside. Vanessa had told me it was built in 1887 by Brandon's great-great-grandfather, a railroad baron. I'd researched the history. The railroad money came from brutal labor practices and political corruption, but nobody mentioned that at country club luncheons. I parked my Lincoln between Mercedes and Teslas. The valet looked at my 10-year-old car with barely concealed confusion before taking the keys. Inside, the dinner was set in a ballroom with crystal chandeliers and gold leaf ceiling details. 60 people in evening wear, drinking cocktails that probably cost more than my first truck payment. Vanessa stood at the center in a designer dress, Brandon beside her. Douglas held court nearby, silver-haired, patrician, the kind of man who'd never sweated through a work shirt in his life. I made my way through the crowd. Vanessa spotted me, and her smile flickered. "Daddy, you came," said I would. Her eyes traveled over my gray suit with an expression I'd seen before. The same look she'd given my truck, my calloused hands, my stories about Caroline working through chemotherapy. Disappointment. Brandon's mother approached, jewels glittering. You must be William. How lovely. Vanessa's told us you're in construction? The pause before construction carried volumes. I built the medical complex on Riverside Drive, I said. And the Preston office tower. And the school your grandchildren probably attend. Her smile was plastic. How industrious. Douglas appeared at Vanessa's elbow. William, good to see you. His handshake was soft, uncalloused. Shall we discuss the ceremony logistics? I've been practicing walking Vanessa down the aisle. It's quite an honor. I'm sure it is. Vanessa touched Douglas's arm. Daddy understands. Don't you, Daddy? You've always been practical about these things. Practical. As if watching another man walk my daughter down the aisle was a business decision instead of a knife to the chest. Dinner was announced. I found my seat, table 9, near the back, between Brandon's cousin and a woman who introduced herself as the event planner. Nobody asked about my work. Nobody mentioned Caroline. I was furniture in a gray suit. The toast began after the entree. Douglas stood, champagne glass raised. To Vanessa, he said, voice carrying across the ballroom. I've had the privilege of watching you blossom into a remarkable young woman, guiding you, mentoring you, helping you understand what true refinement means. Walking you down the aisle tomorrow will be the proudest moment of my life. Applause rippled through the room. Vanessa beamed. Brandon stood next. To my beautiful bride. You're everything I've ever wanted, elegant, sophisticated, a true Montgomery. A true Montgomery. As if she hadn't been born a Hartford. As if Caroline and I hadn't existed. I watched my daughter glow under their praise, watched her laugh at jokes about new money and social climbing, watched her become someone I didn't recognize. After dinner, Vanessa found me by the bar. Daddy, I'm glad you came. I know this isn't your usual scene. No, I agreed. It's not. After the wedding, things will settle down. We can have lunch, catch up properly. Will we? She blinked. Of course. You're still my father. Just not the one walking you down the aisle. Not the one at the front table. Not the one who matters. Her expression hardened. Don't be dramatic. This is about Brandon's family, their traditions. You're making it about you. Your mother and I built everything so you'd never have to struggle. So you'd have opportunities, security, freedom to choose your path. I kept my voice quiet. Caroline worked through stage 4 cancer to keep our company afloat. To make sure you'd have a future. And you've decided that future means pretending we didn't exist. I'm not pretending anything. I'm just... She glanced around, lowering her voice. Daddy, you have to understand. Brandon's family is old money. Real society. They look at people like us, like you, differently. People like me. Self-made. Working class. You built yourself up, and that's wonderful, but it's not the same as being born into it. Douglas understands these distinctions. He's helped me navigate them. I looked at my daughter, at this stranger in a designer dress, speaking words that would have broken Caroline's heart. I see, I said. She softened, touching my arm. After the honeymoon, we'll talk about your role in our lives. Brandon mentioned you might build us a vacation house, something in the mountains, maybe? You do a wonderful job with that. Build her a house. Take orders like a contractor instead of her father. I need to leave, I said. But the evening's not over. We're doing the rehearsal in an hour. I've seen enough. I walked out through the ballroom, past the crystal and gold leaf, past the people who looked through me like I was invisible. In my car, I sat in the darkness of the parking lot and called Richard. It's done. I asked. The trust is dissolved. Hartford Family Foundation is established. The funds transferred this afternoon. He paused. William, there's no reversing this easily. If you change your mind, I won't. I drove home through empty streets. At my desk, I drafted a letter. Handwritten. The way Caroline used to write important things. Vanessa, by the time you read this, you'll have discovered that the trust fund your mother and I established no longer exists. The $2 million has been transferred to the Hartford Family Foundation, which will support construction workers and their families, the kind of people your mother valued, the kind you've chosen to look down on. I'm not punishing you for marrying Brandon. I'm not angry about where I sit at your wedding. I'm heartbroken that you've forgotten where you came from and ashamed of the people who sacrificed everything to give you opportunities. Your mother died making sure you'd have security. She worked through agony so our crews could feed their families, so you could go to college, so you'd understand that real worth comes from building things that matter, not from the table you sit at or the family name you marry into. You've chosen to honor a man who's known you 6 years over the father who's known you 25. You've chosen to erase your mother's memory in favor of impressing people who judge worth by pedigree instead of character. The money is gone because you've demonstrated you'd use it to buy acceptance into a world that values appearances over substance. That's not what your mother and I built it for. If you want a relationship with me, you'll have to earn it the way I earned everything, through work, humility, and respect for the people who came before you. Your father always. William I sealed it in an envelope and set it on the kitchen counter where she'd left the seating chart. The wedding was tomorrow at 2 p.m. She'd discover the trust was empty sometime after that, probably Monday morning when she tried to access the funds. I thought about Caroline, about the nights she'd held Vanessa, singing lullabies between chemotherapy sessions, about her last words, "Take care of our girl." I tried, but taking care sometimes meant letting them face the consequences of their choices. I didn't attend the wedding, couldn't bear to watch Douglas walk her down the aisle, to sit in the back row while she became a Montgomery and erased everything Hartford. Instead, I went to the cemetery, sat beside Caroline's headstone with coffee from our old diner. I did what I had to, I told her. I hope you'd understand. My phone stayed silent all day. The wedding happened without me. 600 guests, society pages, everything Vanessa had dreamed of. On Monday morning, Richard called. Vanessa's attorney contacted me. She's demanding an emergency meeting. She's discovered the trust is gone. Tell her I'll meet her Wednesday. My office. 2 p.m. William, she's threatening legal action. She can threaten whatever she wants. The trust documents gave me discretionary authority. Everything was legal. I paused. But tell her I'll explain in person, if she wants to hear it. Wednesday arrived cold and gray. I sat in my office at Meridian Construction, the headquarters Caroline and I had designed together, built on land we'd purchased with our first major profit. Vanessa arrived at exactly 2 p.m. She wore a Chanel suit now, wedding ring flashing, but her eyes were red from crying. She stood in the doorway, trembling with rage. "How could you?" Her voice cracked. "How could you destroy my trust fund? That was my future, my security. $2 million gone." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She didn't move. "I needed that money," she continued. "Brandon and I were planning to buy a house. I was going to invest, start a lifestyle brand. You've ruined everything." "Sit down, Vanessa." "I don't want to sit down. I want you to explain how you could be so cruel, so vindictive." "Sit down." Something in my voice made her comply. She sank into the chair, hands shaking. I pulled out the photograph of Caroline holding her as a newborn, slid it across the desk. "Your mother established that trust fund with me. Every dollar in it came from work we did together. 18-hour days, sacrificed time with you. Her health declining while she managed the books." I kept my voice steady. "She wanted you to have security, but she also wanted you to understand the value of what we built and why we built it. So you took it away because I didn't let you walk me down the aisle?" Vanessa's voice went high. "Because of a wedding seating chart? I took it away because you've spent 2 years demonstrating you have no idea what that money represents." I opened the file folder I'd prepared. Inside were photographs, documents, memories. Your mother working in the hospital bed. You at 8 years old, crying at her funeral. Me teaching you to read blueprints. The 3 of us building that house for the Martinez family after their fire. I spread them across the desk. "Do you remember any of this?" Vanessa stared at the photographs. Her hand moved toward the image of Caroline and stopped. "Of course I remember," she whispered. "But what does that have to do with my trust fund?" "Everything." I pulled out more documents. "These are the values your mother and I wrote into the trust establishment paperwork. They're not just legal language. They were promises about what we hoped you'd become." I read them aloud. "The beneficiary will demonstrate respect for labor and the dignity of work. The beneficiary will honor the family legacy of service and humility. The beneficiary will use these resources to build something meaningful, not merely to purchase status or acceptance." I set down the papers. "Tell me which of those values you've demonstrated." Vanessa's face flushed. "That's not fair. I'm 25 years old. I'm finding my way. By calling construction work labor with contempt? By introducing me as William, he's in construction, instead of as your father? By letting Douglas walk you down the aisle while I sat in the back row like a vendor?" That was about Brandon's family traditions. It was about being ashamed of where you came from. My voice stayed quiet, but each word landed hard. Your mother died so you could go to college. Died working through stage 4 cancer so our employees could keep their jobs, so you'd have a future. And you've decided that future means erasing her memory and pretending you were born into the Montgomery world instead of built up from nothing by two people who loved you. Tears spilled down Vanessa's cheeks. You don't understand what it's like. Brandon's family, their friends, they look at people differently. They have standards. I was trying to fit in, to make a good impression, by sacrificing your integrity. I opened another folder. I established the Hartford Family Foundation with your trust money. It will support construction workers' families, medical bills, education, emergency assistance. The kind of people your mother valued. The kind you've learned to look down on. Vanessa wiped her eyes. So that's it. You've given away my inheritance to punish me. I've redirected your inheritance to honor what your mother built it for. Helping people who understand struggle. I stood, walked to the window overlooking the construction yard. But this isn't permanent. She looked up sharply. What? The foundation has a provision. If you demonstrate genuine understanding of the values your mother and I try to teach you, if you show through actions, not words, that you remember where you came from, the foundation will name you as co-director. You'll have access to the funds, but only to use them in ways that honor what they represent. What kind of actions? I turned back to her. That's for you to figure out. Your mother and I can't tell you how to be a person of character. We can only create circumstances that reveal whether you choose to be one. Vanessa stared at me. This is insane. You're making me jump through hoops for money I was supposed to inherit. You inherited nothing. Your mother and I earned that money through sacrifice and hard work. We chose to put it aside for you, contingent on you becoming someone worthy of the responsibility. I sat back down. You're not entitled to wealth just for being born. That's the Montgomery worldview, not the Hartford one. She stood abruptly. Brandon's going to hear about this. His family's attorneys can review the trust documents all they want. Everything was legal and clearly within my discretionary authority. I met her eyes. But here's what you should know. Brandon's family won't care about you fighting for this money. Old money doesn't respect new money scrambling for inheritance. They'll see it as proof you don't belong. Vanessa froze. The truth hit her like cold water. But they don't need to know, I continued quietly. You can tell them the trust was structured for charitable work, that you're involved in the foundation. That's actually impressive in their circles. Old money likes philanthropy, where you can throw a legal tantrum that confirms every prejudice they have about you. She sank back into the chair, deflated. Why are you doing this? Her voice was small now, lost. Because your mother asked me to take care of you. And taking care doesn't mean making life easy. It means making sure you become someone she'd be proud of. I pulled out one more photograph. Caroline in her hand-sewn dress, holding Vanessa at 3 years old, both of them laughing. She loved you more than anything, more than her own life. She'd want you to be happy, yes, but she'd want you to be good more than she'd want you to be comfortable. Vanessa took the photograph with trembling hands. For a long moment, she just stared at it. I miss her, she whispered. So do I. Every day. Did I really hurt you that badly? With the wedding? I leaned back. Imagine Caroline spending 25 years building something with her bare hands. Imagine her dying to protect it. Then imagine watching someone treat it like an embarrassment, something to hide from people who never built anything themselves. Fresh tears spilled. I didn't mean, I wasn't trying to, I know. You were trying to fit in. To be accepted. Those are human desires. I slid a tissue box across the desk. But when you sacrifice who you are to gain acceptance from people who wouldn't accept you anyway, you lose everything that matters. Vanessa wiped her eyes, mascara streaking. What do I do now? You decide what kind of person you want to be. The trust fund is gone, but you have a good education, a healthy body, and opportunities your mother and I never had. You can build your own legacy, where you can spend your life trying to impress people who measure worth by the wrong metrics. She stood slowly. Can I think about this? Take all the time you need. She walked to the door, then turned back. Daddy, I'm sorry. For all of it. For making you sit in the back. For letting Douglas. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. Apologies are words, Vanessa. Show me with actions. She nodded and left. I sat alone in my office as the sun set over the construction yard. Workers headed home, trucks rolling out. Another day of building complete. My phone stayed silent for 3 weeks. No calls, no texts, no contact. Then, on a Thursday morning, Vanessa appeared at a job site. Not the headquarters, an actual construction site in a rough neighborhood where we were building subsidized housing. She wore jeans and work boots. No designer labels. Her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "I want to help," she said. "I was reviewing foundation plans with my site manager." "Help with what?" "The project. Whatever needs doing." She looked around at the concrete forms, the lumber stacks, the equipment. "I know I don't know anything, but I want to learn." I studied her face. No makeup. Eyes clear. Hands empty of the designer purse she'd carried like armor. "Talk to Martinez," I said, gesturing to my foreman. "Tell him you're here to work. He'll find something." She spent the day carrying lumber, cleaning up debris, learning to mix mortar. I watched from a distance as she struggled with physical labor she'd never done, as Martinez patiently taught her the basics, as she pushed through obvious exhaustion. At quitting time, she found me by my truck. Her hands were blistered, clothes dusty. "Can I come back tomorrow?" she asked. "If you want." "I do." She came back every day for 6 weeks. Learned to frame walls, read plans, understand the workflow. She talked to the crew, listened to their stories about supporting families, about pride in the work, about what it meant to build something that would last. She stopped mentioning Brandon's family, stopped talking about the junior league and society events. One afternoon, she sat beside me during lunch break. "The Martinez family. Miguel's wife has cancer." "I know. Stage 3. We're covering their medical bills through the company insurance." "Is that why Mom kept working? Even when she was sick?" "Partly. She also believed in the work itself. Believed that building things, homes, schools, hospitals, was a way of caring for people you'd never meet." Vanessa was quiet for a while. "I forgot that. I forgot what you both built was about more than money. You forgot because nobody in your news circles talked about it. They talk about wealth as status instead of wealth as responsibility. Brandon's family thinks I'm going through a phase. His mother called this my charity work." Vanessa looked at her blistered hands. "But it doesn't feel like charity. It feels like something real." Over the next months, Vanessa became a genuine part of Meridian. Not as executive window dressing, but as someone learning from the ground up. She worked on crews, studied structural engineering at night, started understanding the business from the inside. She also began visiting Caroline's grave regularly. I found her there one Sunday, cleaning the headstone, planting flowers. "I'm sorry I stopped coming," she said when she noticed me. "I was so focused on becoming someone else, I forgot to honor who made me who I am. Your mother would understand. She'd just want you to remember now." 6 months after our confrontation, Vanessa came to my office with a proposal. "I want to start a program through the Hartford Family Foundation. Education scholarships for children of construction workers. Help them go to college without their parents having to sacrifice health or security." I reviewed her detailed plan. Budget projections, selection criteria, administration structure. It was thoughtful, thorough, grounded in understanding the actual needs. "You've learned to build," I said. "I had good teachers." She met my eyes. "I know I can't undo the wedding, can't erase the choices I made, but I want to build something that honors Mom. That honors what you both try to teach me." I stood and walked to the filing cabinet. Pulled out documents Richard had prepared months ago. "These name you as co-director of the Hartford Family Foundation, with full access to the funds for programs you develop that align with the foundation's mission." I slid them across the desk. "They've been ready since the day we established the foundation." Vanessa stared. "You always planned to give me access?" "I planned to give you the opportunity to earn it. There's a difference." She signed the documents with hands that had become calloused from real work. 2 years later, the Hartford Family Foundation had distributed over 300 scholarships. Vanessa ran it full-time, had become an expert in educational access and workers' rights. She'd also quietly separated from Brandon, not dramatically, but with the recognition that they'd grown in different directions. She still wore her gray work clothes to the office most days, still showed up at job sites to check on projects, to talk to crews, to remember where she came from. One morning, she brought coffee to my desk, the same brand Caroline used to make. "I was thinking about adding a medical assistance program," she said, spreading out plans. "Specifically for cancer patients who are primary breadwinners. Help them work less, heal more, not choose between treatment and keeping their families fed." I looked at the proposal. It was designed exactly the way Caroline would have wanted. "Your mother would love this," I said. "I hope so." Vanessa touched the photograph on my desk. Caroline in her hand-sewn dress. I'm trying to build something she'd be proud of. Something that matters more than the table I sit at. You already have. She smiled, genuine, earned, the kind of smile that came from work instead of appearance. Thank you, Daddy, for not giving up on me. That's what fathers do. We worked through the morning together, drafting proposals, planning programs, building something that honored the woman who'd built us both. Outside the window, Meridian construction crews headed to their sites, starting another day of work that would shelter families, serve communities, create something lasting. My coffee went cold while we worked, but I didn't mind. I was building again, not with concrete and steel this time, but with the daughter who'd finally learned what construction really meant. Not just raising buildings, but raising people. Not just earning money, but earning integrity. Caroline's photograph washed from the desk, her smile captured in time, but her values living forward in the foundation that bore her name and the daughter who'd learned to honor them. That was legacy. That was enough. And in the morning light, with calloused hands wrapped around empty coffee mugs, with plans spread between us and work ahead, it was everything we'd built for.